Hi there, it's Richard Little from Your Land Partner. We're in the second, I think it's the 51st out of 100 pieces of content, video content. We are in the second video of a short mini series about planning. Well, not short, it'll be 10 or so videos. And yesterday was the introduction. Today we are talking about the planning system. So most of you won't listen to this. You'll turn off at this point because it's a planning system. What do we need to know about a planning system? Well, just bear with me for a little bit if you would be so kind. So the planning system, effectively, what sits at the top of the planning system is what we call the Nppf, which is the National Planning Policy Framework. Anybody that wants to actually understand a bit more about this, it's not just planning consultants that need to know this stuff. Somebody within a development business should have a good idea of what it actually sits up there. You don't have to know all the details, but actually understand what the system is, etc. So this is a good book. You're probably reading that the wrong way around. So it's Interpreting the Nppf. Alistair Mills, this edition I think is probably 2018. Don't think there's one since. Yes, it's probably lots of small print and lots of jargon and stuff, but actually even just flicking through it, you get used to the terminology, you understand it, so you can probably have a slightly better conversation with your planning people, your planning consultants, etc. So that sits above everything else. That's the overarching guidance, yeah. But it says, you know, it's a framework, yes. But what it is, it gives guidance on everything pretty much to do with planning. You know, some of which we're not really interested in at this point. Effectively, we're house builders, bit of commercial, but mostly house builders. So things like achieving sustainable development, which is a big thing for most local authorities. Delivering a sufficient supply of homes, again quite important to most local authorities and certainly important to the nation. Effective use of land, so where the guidance is where land should be used to its most effective. And another thing, achieving well-designed homes, which is something we should all be looking to do, but that's sometimes subject to opinion, shall we say. But the framework gives guidance on all of those and many more areas. So it's interesting to sort of see, okay, what are they saying about these significant, important areas of our business. But probably much more important for, you know, everybody that's ever likely to watch this is what sits underneath that. Now, so that's the national guidance, that's the national framework. Underneath there, every local authority should have, this is not absolutely correct, they should have, but they don't all have, a valid local plan. Now, a local plan effectively sets out more local policies. It'll include things like site allocation plans, proposal maps, and many more things. And it generally covers between a 10 and 20 year period. Again, depends where you are as to what period they cover. And when they get in towards the middle of that period, they start looking at the new one and updating it. But it's important because it tells us local. It's not, we got the national framework that sits up here, but generally you don't really need to get into that until you get to the point of things like appeals and stuff like that. So understanding the local plan. Now again, most people won't read it. It's not any longer just one document. There's lots of supplementary documents that go with it. Things like what we call a strategic housing land availability assessment, more commonly known as a SLAR. There's also a strategic housing market assessment, which is the SMAR. So they've all got different terminologies, and those documents are really important in terms of for developers, because they're pretty much showing assessments of the suitability and availability of land in a particular area, and also a lot about the needs. Now, those documents should be updated a lot more frequently. Some local authorities are very good at it, some are shocking. So the quality of information that you get from your local plan and supplementary documents is very mixed. And again, very much depends where it is in the cycle. Is it still valid? Is it not valid, etc.? So, but it's important because it will give us some guidance as to what are those core policies within that local area. What's really, really important. Now, those of you that have listened to us before and some of the future planning stuff, the videos we're going to do over the next week or so, will tell you probably better ways of actually finding that information. But this is about the planning structure, you know, and this is what it's built around. So again, it's about terminology. Other supplementary guidance that you get in some areas, again not all, is supplementary guidance for design. Now they're amazing when they're actually in place, because they give us so much information. You know, how much amenity, how much garden properties need to have, dwellings need to have. You know, how many car parking spaces that they're looking for. You know, some it's 1 per bedroom, sometimes it's 2 for whatever. You know, it varies, and you know, but in there it gives us the guidance what they're looking for. Now, is it a Bible as such? Is it sacrosanct? Is everything there as it should be? Not necessarily, but it's still giving us that overarching idea of what people are looking for. Then, you know, underneath that sits the process. So the system, you know, is there in terms of the Nppf sitting at the top, then underneath that the local plan, all the local documentation, etc. As I say, you know, I'm not expecting people to go out and read it word for word. Some people may well do and get a great understanding, but anybody that's looking to be a lead developer, make any cash out of planning, if you like, you know, from planning uplifts, planning plays, etc. The more you understand about this stuff, the better you will be positioned in order to get the most out of your consultants when you're going through the process, and you'll be able to question them. You'll be able to say you understand the lingo, you understand the terminology. You can have a much more credible conversation with consultants, planners. You know, as long as you've got to understand a little bit more than just the buzzwords, if you like. But it's very, very useful. I mean, I'm very fortunate. We've picked up a lot of knowledge over the last 40 odd years since I've been doing that, and it's sort of become second nature to a degree. But people, what I find is they ignore the planning, and planning is where we generally make the most value, where we actually create the most value to a project. So really, it's something that should be probably considered a little bit more important by some, and not just leave all the planning stuff to the consultants. You know, sure, I've got good consultants, that's fine, but like everything else, how do you know they're any good if you don't understand what they're talking about? So this is just an introduction to, well, it's not introduction, it's actually, this is the system. So underneath the system, as we already said, becomes the planning process. And the planning process we're going to start delving into over the next few days and take you through step by step what actually is required, what it means, maybe a few little possibly nuggets, dodges, whatever you might want to call, things to be looking out for. So what we're always looking at and why it's important, the Nppf is so important, excuse me, and we will give a lot more detail on this when we're actually looking at appeals and stuff like that, is because we want to make sure that all of our applications actually do comply to the overarching Nppf, because even if we have an issue with a local plan, if we can actually prove or argue a good case, if you like, that it fits with the Nppf, then we've got a little bit of an edge, or can have a little bit of an edge when it comes to the appeal process. And those of you that haven't heard us talk about this before, when we get to those videos, you'll understand a little bit more why that is so important. It's all about risk mitigation, effectively. So this has been Richard Little from Your Land Partner, just giving you a brief insight into what the planning system is, and we're going to be going through this in order as from all the subsequent videos. So I hope that was of value. So if you want to know more, it's not my book, Interpreting the Nppf. There's a few different ones. This is the one that we particularly like. So Alistair Mills is the author on that one. And get yourself a copy because it looks good on the bookshelf and we know how important that is. So Richard Little, take care.